evening, welcome to Premiere Scene. I'm William McLaughlan, and tonight we're here at the UK premiere of David Cronenberg's new film, A Dangerous Method.
Sex.
Male.
Family.
Child.
Divorce.
No.
Despite the sort of complex content, I was surprised at how accessible the film was, and I wondered if that was a struggle to keep things simple, or if you'd ever got bogged down in the sort of psychoanalytical background.
It's always very, very difficult to make things simple. It's the hardest thing of all, and this material is not easy. I mean, I knew quite a lot about Freud before I started, but I knew nothing about Jung, and Jung, admirable as he is in so many ways, is not the easiest writer to grapple with. So first of all, the problem was to understand what they were trying to say, or what they did say, rather, and then to make it accessible without making it, foolish, or you don't want people, saying to each other, I've just had an idea about what I might call the collective unconscious, or any of that stuff. So it was a long process writing it, but then the making it accessible is down to these people.
Oh, it was easy, really. I mean, we just did the script, basically. I mean, that was the key, that Christopher could compress an incredibly complex subject, the birth of psychoanalysis and all that. There were hundreds of wonderful, eccentric, strange characters who floated in and out of that world. And even to the extent that Emma Jung, for example, became an analyst herself, which is something we couldn't deal with in the movie. But that Christopher could compress that down to basically 5 main characters and make it and still give you the essence and the feel and the texture of the times. That's the art, that was the great. So once we had the script, it was just playing it out, just playing it scene by scene. For me, not a problem.
Professor Freud.
Dr. Jung. I've simply opened a door. It's for the young men like yourself to walk through it.
I was wondering if you can talk about the kind of evolution of the story from the Sabina treatment through to the play, and then what you've ended up with here.
Well, I wrote it first as a screenplay for Julia Roberts' company and for 20th Century Fox, and it was called Sabina then. It was really centered on her and went right through to her death. And then the film didn't get made, and so I didn't want to waste all that research. So I decided that it might work as a play, but in the meantime, I'd realized that the central character wasn't really Sabina. It was Jung, Carl Jung. And so I sort of shifted everything and narrowed it down a bit in focus for the play. Then David Cronenberg called me a year or so later, having read the play, which was very exciting. And when he read the play and he read the original screenplay that I'd written, he felt that he preferred the play, which I do too, and that he wanted to stay closer to that than the original, the first attempt, the first draft, really.
And Keira, who plays Sabina, was she able to read the original version of the script?
I don't know if she ever did, actually. I mean, the poor girl, I gave her so many books, she could hardly walk when she left my office. And she was very, very conscientious in her research. And, she's great in the film.
And with such a sort of technical content and it's so dialogue heavy, the film, do you put any constraints on yourself as a writer when you're writing this kind of material?
No, because I'd written the play and the play had worked, and then David Cronenberg really encouraged me to not, soften it or make it any easier. In fact, on the whole, I think the film is probably tougher than the play in all those respects.
Perhaps she's the one for your experimental treatment.
Tell me about the first time you can remember being beaten by your father.
It excited me.
I had a look at the other films you produced and I was really impressed. This film, I saw this morning, it looks like it's quite hard to sell commercially. Is that something that attracted you to the project?
Well, I thought it was going to be a successful film. That's why I did it. So, I think people are, they're incredible big thinkers, Jung and Freud, and fascinating, and psychoanalysis is very important. And in the age of Prozac, I thought, well, good to have a film about the brain, another sort of film about the brain. And this is a body part that Cronenberg focused on in this film, rather than being some other sort of body part that was the brain part.
And do you think as David's maturing as a filmmaker, he's becoming less interested maybe in the physical kind of threat and more interested in the sort of psychological threat?
I think he's interested in all things, and I mean, people get pigeonholed into what sort of films. I mean, if you look at the films he's made a sort of great big range of films, but his reputation is sort of principally known as as somebody who's dealing with the extreme and the bizarre. But he made all sorts of films, and this is just another film in his journey through filmmaking.
And how is your little Russian patient?
There was the most dramatic improvement.
Is she a virgin?
Oh, certainly.
If you ever want to take the initiative, I live in that building there.
Your discussion of the found art aspect of filmmaking really fascinating this morning. I wondered if you could expand maybe on some of the stuff that happened during this shoot.
Oh, sorry, which part?
The found art sort of aspect.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think when you always present a work of art as a sort of controlled thing and a structured thing, but when you're actually making the movie, there are things that you can't control, and in fact things you don't want to control. You want some spontaneity, you want surprises, and they can come from anywhere. They can come from an actor's reading of the line, or they can come from weather that surprises you and you decide to shoot with that weather instead of what you had originally planned. And there are many things like that in this movie. You do a lot of preparation, but when I come on the set, I really don't know how I'm going to shoot the thing. It's almost like a documentary of what you found that day, and that's the aspect of found art that I was talking about. It keeps you alive as a director, to really have everything absolutely planned out so that you only would say action and cut would be very boring, and I don't think it wouldn't interest me as a filmmaker.
Why should we put so much effort into suppressing our most basic natural instincts?
Never repress anything.
I want you to punish me.
This is your third time working with David, and I wondered if you could talk about what you enjoy working with each other so much.
Well, we have a similar sense of humor, for one thing, and similar work ethic. We like to show up really well prepared and turn over every stone before we even start filming. And I think the fact that when he cast me sort of late in the game, because I took someone else's place, I knew that I'd be in good hands when I got on the set. I knew that how he worked, and I knew how his crew worked, and I was looking forward to seeing Vincent Cassel again, whom I'd worked with on Eastern Promises. And I was looking forward to meeting and working with Keira and Michael. And I knew it was a great script. Christopher Hampton's script is beautiful. So I don't know. It was the great thing about David is that the preparation is fun, the shooting is fun, and you're pretty well guaranteed that you're going to have a good movie at the end of it. So.
There's a rumor running around Vienna that you've taken one of your patients as a mistress.
Surely you didn't think I'd let you go without putting up a fight.
I thought this was quite a risky part, and I was very impressed at how well you pulled it off. I was wondering if you were nervous about considering it and how you went through the kind of casting process, if you could tell us like that.
Well, the casting process was basically I met David Cronenberg about 6 years ago, and we had an open audition, and it was really lovely, but nothing came of it, and I didn't really think any more of it. I've always loved his work, so I wanted to work with him, but all of a sudden my agents phoned up and said, okay, David's going to offer you a role, and I'd sort of 95% decided to say yes before I even read the script, and then got the script and went, wow, this is extraordinary. But there are these scenes of a kind of S&M nature, and I really didn't know whether I wanted to do that and didn't know whether I could do that. And so I spoke to him and said, look, I love you and I love your work and I love this script, but I really don't know that I can do that. And he said, well, we'll take them out. I want you to play this role, so we just won't shoot them. And we carried on talking, and as we kind of got into the sort of mentality, I went, no, okay, it's really important that they're in there. And he sort of said, look, I don't want this to be voyeuristic or sexy, I want it to be kind of brutal. And I sort of thought it was such a huge part of her character that it was very important, but it was very daunting to do it.
Don't you think we ought to stop?
Do you want to stop?
You still love him?
Will you come back to us now?
You've done quite a lot of sort of physical films recently with Shame and Excellent, and this is very dialogue driven and it's technical in content. I was wondering if you could tell us about how you approach that and how you master it.
Just by spending a lot of time with it, you know. I just sort of read the script a lot, read it over and over and over and over again, because, you know, like you pointed out, you know, it's very dialogue heavy, this story, and that's pretty rare these days in film, at least. And so I spent a lot of time with it. You know, Christopher did such an eloquent job with it, and it's so articulate, and it's got its own rhythm, it's got its own beat, so I just treat it like a piece of music, just kept working on it.
Sometimes you have to do something unforgivable just to be able to go on living.
That was David Cronenberg with the cast and crew of A Dangerous Method. I'm William McLaughlan. Thanks for watching Premiere Scene.